Hello, my name is Hannah, and I am the author of The Long March Home. Just wanted to get on here and explain a few things. The biggest question I get when people find out that I'm a writer and I have a published book is, what made you become a writer and why did you choose historical fiction? So I'm going to break that up in 3 simple parts here for you and hopefully better explain that question. So let's start at the very beginning. Growing up, I was homeschooled, and for my reading curriculum, I had to read a lot of history, which ironically at the time I hated with a passion. And the books that we read were very full of rich vocabulary. We read a lot of classic literature, even during our family time. And then when it came to writing, which was my favorite part of school, I learned I had several different programs that I used for writing, and I just took a little bit of each one and kind of just mashed it all together in a way that I understood that made it easier for me. And I really enjoyed thinking up stories and putting them together, having your base storyline, the middle part, what happens, and then the end result. And so I really enjoyed putting those together. A lot of my playtime, my brother and I, we played a lot of outdoor games and a lot of Legos indoors. And we would set up these giant battle scenes, and then we would play it out. And so as we're playing it out, I'm coming up with each of these little characters that we're playing with and who they are as people, what they did, and then it would all evolve into this huge battle. But during those times when I was thinking up those stuff, I would later go in school, and when it was time to do my writing, I would often write about the stories of these little characters that we created during play, and I had a lot of fun with that. And also, I wouldn't really say I had insomnia, but I did have a lot of trouble sleeping, and often I would just be laying there wondering. I couldn't go to sleep, so I would begin to tell myself these little stories, and they would just grow in my head and get bigger and bigger, and then every night I could add on a little bit more to what I was thinking about the previous night until I had a full-blown story in my head. And that's kind of where my first book came about. And let's move on to the inspiration behind it. So, 2 main inspirations. One being my grandfather, who I actually dedicated my book to, and you can read that in the inscription here. And then Louisa May Alcott. So, my grandfather was a veteran in the Korean War, and he's what really made history interesting for me. When I struggled in school and couldn't stand reading about history, but then going and hearing him talk about history, it was completely different. When he talked about history, it was on a personal level. I kind of got to see things through his eyes, and I was much more able to understand it. Whereas when I'm reading about it in school, I'm reading little more than births, deaths, and dates, and, victories and losses. So when he would tell me about them, and being a historian himself, the way he would tell the stories of things that had happened in the past, or the things that he went through while he was in the war, it really brought it home for me, and I was able to understand it. So when I did have to go read history in school, I could in my mind think of people and how they went through these situations in time, and it made it a lot more enjoyable for me to read. And then my second inspiration would be the author Louisa May Alcott. When I read her book Little Women in school, and also watched all the different movie versions, I was really inspired by the main character, Jo March. Her and I had a lot in common. We were both tomboys. She was an aspiring writer just like me. And I also later discovered that her character was heavily based on Louisa May Alcott's real life, which was another thing that just really drew me in. And as I'm reading this book, you know, the Civil War is happening in the background. It's not really the main part of the story. You don't really hear much about the war other than it's happening and their father is off fighting. And so that also is probably what really drew me into that time period, was reading Little Women. And I would just, you know, imagine the things that they saw, the clothing that they wore. And it's kind of where my research started, I suppose, as to looking into the fashion side of it and what they would have worn or looked like back then. And then, but yeah, so those two were my main inspirations. And let's move on to the historical factor. So why history? That is probably one of the most important questions, and I'm going to say it's because history is always there, whether we like it or not. We could try to forget things, but it doesn't change the fact that something may have happened, whether it was good or bad. We can't leave things out because they're distasteful. That's not how we learn. By reading history, we can learn from mistakes and try not to let them happen again. So, and also, as history is such an important subject and factor in our lives, and so many people, just like me, have difficulty reading it and understanding it, or even caring for it, I decided I really wanted to bring history back to life and make it enjoyable for people by putting it at a personal level and giving you characters that you can feel exactly what they were going through and how they dealt with that time period and the things going on. And so, yeah, I hope all these things that I have mentioned helps you understand who I am as a writer and why I chose history. And I hope you all have a really great day. See you later. Hey, and thanks for watching. You can hit any one of these numerous buttons down here to like, follow, and subscribe. And catch you later on the next video.